Samir, you know the framing of this conflict from those on this panel and many in this room. It is a rules-based international order. It's a free world versus those in Russia and China who want to tear that down or replace it. Does India have a side in this conflict?
Look, I was very scared coming into this room because this is a room of believers and I'm the only one who's an atheist. So it is difficult for me, so be kind to me. Let me just try and respond to two parts of your question. Does India have a side? I'm sure India has a side, but I don't speak for India. I speak for myself here. And I'll give you a Indian view, one Indian view, and we are 1.4 billion, so there are many views. And we change our minds every evening, so there are many more. So this morning, this is my view. My view is that after what I've heard, I think this is not a moment of reckoning of any great world war. I think many such conflicts have been resolved in the past when nuclear powers have had to face defeat when they have invaded certain countries. America has that experience. China has that experience with Vietnam. Pakistan, a nuclear power always ready to go to war with India, had to leave the Kargil heights after occupying them, and they were beaten back through conventional action. And I think provided you can get your supply chains and provided what the minister was seeking from Ukraine can be delivered at scale and at speed, this is not a moment of reckoning where the world has to face any great moment of truth. I think this is a military response that could be resolved in the battlefields of Ukraine, provided the rest of you are willing to participate. I think what you have done well till now is host conferences supporting Ukraine. You've done nothing more. So you've done very well in creating chat shops that talk up your support to Ukraine. But when it comes to real action, you've seen that the Russian 2.0, which is when Russia reorganized its operations in Ukraine after its initial setback, they have been grinding forward. And the creeping expansion of Russia in the battlefield is visible. And I do not believe that a $40 trillion opposition is playing to wait in dealing with the $2 trillion military giant in the battlefield. And that's a aseptic observation from someone sitting very far away, not involved. One side is not participating in the battlefield, and that's the reality. There is only one actor who has reorganized his strategic engagement, and I think you guys really need to think. And why I'm saying it is because if something like this was to happen in the Indo-Pacific, it tells countries like us that you have no chance against the Chinese. If you guys can't manage a $2 trillion economy in a battlefield, you have no chance against the Chinese. Don't think you're defending China. You are encouraging China by everything you do here. The Chinese are taking hope by your dismal and abysmal performance facing a much smaller adversary. You cannot even... anyways, sorry. I don't want to... You're nice people, you're my host. Now, so that's the first observation.
No,
the second observation.
Make sure you're looking at the American when you say that, because the Estonians are doing well.
Look, on the Americans, please don't play this Trump bogey. It is the Biden administration that has failed to deliver everything that minister has been asking from Ukraine. So let's not play the Trump bogey. Let's talk about now. The fact is that you will be dealing with the same American state, irrespective of who's sitting in the White House, and you will have to deal with the same defense establishment that will be making the decisions. The president goes and gives airwaves and gets retweets. That's it. Everyone else decides. And that's the way America is structured. And so don't play the Trump bogey here. It's America that you deal with, irrespective of who's sitting in the White House. And let's be honest here. Now, on the India stand, look, it's a very difficult situation for most Indians. And I think all of you here should understand this. When we were threatened, when the 7th Fleet was sent to the Bay of Bengal to intervene in a conflict that involved our territory, it was USSR that stood in the way. When resolutions were passed in the United Nations, many of them sponsored by those who sit in this continent, it was Soviet Union that vetoed them. You must understand that it has been the longest standing partner of India. That is not going to take that away. Ukraine has only now, and let me congratulate the minister, I had dinner with him in Delhi a couple of weeks ago, and Ukraine has only now begun to realize that it needs a fresh new engagement with India. It had forgotten us after USSR, and it was only Russia that took forward that partnership and became the heir of that relationship that we had with the USSR. So, the fact is that we have a long-standing history with Russia, and many of the countries in this continent that are participating against Russia and who talk about colonialism and imperialism, by the way, were in India. We were a colony. So we understand the Estonians well, because in some sense there is an empathy here. What you feel towards the Russians, we feel towards many of your allies in Europe. And you're asking us to defend and stand with them. So in some sense, it's a complex arena, Jim. It's not that easy for us but my position, territorial integrity and sovereignty have to be respected. They must be the only mantra. All of us in the last 75 years have been too lazy in defending these. We've been too lazy. We need to go back not to 1938, we need to go back to 1945. And we need to understand the sanctity of boundaries, the sanctity of sovereignty, the sanctity of territoriality. In this world where we could change regimes through digital activism or through, we have become too loose in understanding why regimes matter, why political systems are important, and why borders are relevant for people. We need to start respecting that more. I hope Europe can sort this problem out soon, because it also hurts the rest of the world. The rest of the world does not read it like you are reading it. By the way, it was if you're sitting in Cape Town, the conversation is very different. Yeah. If you're sitting in New Delhi, the conversation is very different. The problems and the causes and the consequences are also assessed very differently. Sure. Russia is not the villain everywhere. Many believe that it was provoked into doing something that it has done. I don't want to go into the merits of what Russia did, but let me just say this. The rational view from Delhi is that Russia is a deep trusted friend. Russia is wrong in invading Ukraine. And there are no two ways about it.
If you believe territorial integrity is a central issue, you have two powers here in Russia and China who are far from committed to that idea.
Absolutely.
So doesn't that make India's side in this conflict clear? How can you be for protecting sovereignty and territorial integrity if you are friends with a country that just invaded Europe's largest country, and another one which has, it annexed the South China Sea and has designs on Taiwan? How can you hold those two positions consistently?
Jim, we run an annual foreign policy poll at ORF, the institution I work in. And every year we have young people between 18 and 35. Thousands of them respond to that poll. This year, when we asked them who are India's two most trusted partners, number one, the US, number two, Russia. Who are the two countries who have complete disregard for territorial integrity? Number one, US, number two, Russia. So my problem is that everyone we love believes that entering other countries and eliminating people they don't like and changing regimes is breakfast. So my problem is that big powers that we are friends with, big countries generally tend to become friends with big powers. They have shown scant respect since 1945, and that's why I said 1945. Most recently, if you look at the early decades of this century, who was the one who was violating territory? And what were the Europeans doing when those territories were being violated?
Well, listen, I would argue there's a difference between annexation and regime change, but it's a subject for another debate.
Sitting in a country for 20 years is not regime change. Sitting in a country for 20 years is not regime change. It is annexation. So my point here is, look, we can question the basis of India's relationships with many countries, including with the Brits, who are not on this panel, so I'll leave them for now. But look, that's not the point here. The point here is that if we are truly honest, all of us have violated many covenants that allowed a rules-based order. In fact, the crowds that shout the loudest for rules-based order today are also the same voices that demand the weakening of sovereignty and nationhood. Rules-based order is based on the respect for that concept of nations that we decided in 1945.